My name is Ed Sheffield. I'm a Taylor County resident. I went in the military in early January 1949, and I came out and got out in 1954. I was a staff sergeant. So we went in the military, me and my brother next to me, we went in at the same time in January 1949. Took our basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and after basic training, of course, he went one way and I went the other way, and I wound up stationed in Japan with the 24th Division under General MacArthur. And we were there for about a year, and all of a sudden the war broke out in Korea. And of course, being the closest, we were only about 90 miles from Busan, Korea. Our division was alerted immediately, and we got orders to load our obsolete equipment that we had been maintaining since World War II. Load all of our equipment on LSTs and en route to Busan, Korea to enter the war, with orders to hold the enemy at all costs. We landed in Busan on the 3rd day of July, immediately transferred to railroad cars, and was headed north to the front line. We were up on the front lines on the 4th of July, and we didn't know at that time, but we were facing 9 North Korean divisions. We were no match for 9 North Korean divisions. The enemy was advancing so fast on us that we were at times firing point blank with the 105 Howitzers at tanks. The North Koreans split off and started surrounding us from the right and left. The North Korean was firing on us from behind, and all the roads, we couldn't withdraw anymore. The roads had been blowed up, the bridges had been blowed up by the North Koreans. So we were sitting ducks. I looked over my right shoulder. My battalion commander was standing next to a 6x with a loudspeaker telling us we were being surrounded. And I seen him get shot right in the head. Then I looked to my left, and there was 4 of my other buddies laying dead in the ditch, not far from me. And about that time, my buddy right next to me caught a bullet in his back, went right through his middle. And unfortunately, myself and a few others were captured, and they kept moving us north, further and further north. Sometime by railroad cattle cars, and they would keep us in the gullies in the mountains during the daytime, and we'd move at night. Sometimes the train was strafed too by planes. The planes probably didn't know that we were prisoners of war in the cattle cars, and but that kept happening until we could no longer travel by train. So we had to move further and further north by foot. And when we got way up there, close to Manchuria, they would keep us out in the open in the cornfield during the daytime. We were in a big cornfield there, right on the banks of the Yellow River, and the Yellow River was about a half mile across it at that place, and we could see up the river for about a half a mile or so, and there was a bridge. And this is when the first bunch of the Chinese came across the river. And we had built a windbreaker around 17 men that was too weak and too sick to walk, and to keep the cold wind coming out of Siberia from freezing them to death. And that was the day, on October the 30th, was the day that the Tiger took charge of us. the North Korean military turned us over to the commander of the People's Police Force. He was a mean character, and we called him the Tiger, because he walked with his handgun in his hand all the time, anxious to shoot somebody or all of us. And on October the 30th, he was explaining to us that we were going on a death march. He was explaining all of this through Commissioner Lord, one of the civilians that was captured back in Sewell. There were several civilians captured. Some of them were diplomats, some of them were war correspondents, some of them were missionaries, and they kept them moving along with us, but they kept them segregated from us. And they would use Commissioner Lord as an interpreter. And he was explaining through Commissioner Lord that we would be going on a forced march, and the ones that fell behind would be shot. And on that day, October the 30th, as we were leaving this cornfield, he ordered his guards to machine gun the sick bay, killing all 17 of them. We got on the road there, headed up toward Mompo, and we were on one side of the road, and two lines of Chinese were on the other side. The Chinese were going south, and we were going north. We got up near Mompo, which was about 2 miles from where we left the cornfield. It was getting dusky dark, and they rushed us off the side of the road, hurdled us against a big mountain cliff, and they set up 3 machine guns there in front of us. And I looked at my buddy and I said, "Man, this looks like where we're going to die." And the civilians, the missionaries and all, could understand the language, and they knew what was about to happen. So they were pleading with the tiger, and for some reason he left and went into town, and he was gone for about 30 or 40 minutes, and he came back and dismantled the machine guns, and we took a deep breath. From there we left, went on through the town of Mompo, which was burning to the ground. It had been bombed that day. Went on through Mompo and got on the other side of Mompo. By this time it was dark. They rushed us off the road again, and we all huddled together as close as we could, keep from freezing to death. Well, at this time of the year, it was in October and early part of November, 1st of November in fact, and the temperature is already in the mid-20s, and snow everywhere. And there was 10 of our guys froze to death the next morning. The next morning, the tiger was telling us that we were going on a forced march up through these rugged mountains, and the ones that fell behind would be shot. And my company commander got up and approached the tiger, explaining to him that these men were too weak and too sick to endure a forced march. And his reply was, "You will go or you will die." And Lieutenant Thornton called him a madman, and that was a mistake. The tiger called 2 of his guards over, took Lieutenant Thornton, escorted him up on a cliff about 12 foot high, and they positioned him at the edge, and then the tiger walked up behind him and shot him in the back of the head. He did that to impress all of us. The 1-lane unpaved road was iced over. It was used mostly by village people with ox carts. But we were going up through these rugged mountains, and some of the guys would get too sick to walk, and we would try to carry them as far as we could, till we wound up at the rear of the column where the tiger was walking with a German Luger pistol in his hand. Walked up to you and motioned for you to put him down and catch up to the column. And when we put him down and catch up to the column, the tiger would shoot him and then take his foot and kick him off the edge of the road down the mountainside. He killed 105 of our guys this way on the march. On this march was 2 days and nights, and when we reached the furthest point in North Korea, it was right on the border of Manchuria and right on the Yellow River, and it was a little village of stick and mud shacks with one little schoolhouse, and they put some of the guys in the schoolhouse and they put the rest of us in these little shacks, 2 or 3 room shacks, and they put 20 or 25 of us in a room inside of a small bedroom with no heat. And the crowded conditions, though, is what kept us all from freezing to death. But after, dysentery was a big problem for us because of contaminated food, contaminated water. And after one after the other died, we would place them outside the door. And their body was frozen by morning. It took 4 of us to carry one that weighed no more than 70 pounds. With guards directing us to a small gully on the side of the mountain, we'd rake the snow back, put him down and pull snow over. We couldn't dig a hole to bury him. The ground was frozen for 10, 15 feet under. We lost around 350 that winter. And when spring finally came, some of us that were able to get up and walk welcomed the chance to get out on a work detail because we had a chance to grab an extra bite of something to eat. I have eaten dried corn stalks, grass, weeds, anything. And they would take about 4 to 6 of us, and we'd use a bull cart. We were pulling the bull cart, hauling rocks to build irrigation dams for the farmers' use, for the rice paddies. Then they kept moving us from one place to another, and finally the North Koreans brought us down the river, turned us over to the Chinese. By this time there was less than 300 of us left. When they turned us over to the Chinese, things were better for us. The food was better, the clothing was better. We had a better place to lay down at night, and they let us go down to the river and take a bath. Water was cold as ice, but we didn't mind. We needed the bath terribly bad. And then the Chinese brought in a doctor, which they had a guard on him 24 hours a day. I've never been able to figure out why they kept him guarded all the time, but they did. And the doctor examined us, and he issued to each of us some powdery medicine that he cautioned us to take only the 1 dose and no more. And we began to pass worms the size of a pencil, 10, 12 at a time. And finally, after 2 or 3 days of this, we got to feeling better and began to gain a little weight. Then the Chinese started their indoctrination classes, trying to convert us to their communist ideals. And that didn't work very well because of the efforts of some of us to undermine their indoctrination classes. And that's whenever they pulled me out of the group, took me up to headquarters, set me on a stool in the middle of a room, tied a cloth around my head, and asked me if I was ready to die. They had me charged with being a troublemaker, instigator, underminer of studies, imperialist warmonger, reactionary, and a spy. And they told me I was going to die. And then sitting on this stool, they brought in 2 of their guards with bolt action rifles, and they give them orders to lock and load. Then it got quiet and for a few seconds, and I was expecting to feel the bullet any minute, any second. And finally, after about 5 minutes, they came over and untied the cloth from around my head and told me I was going to be punished with hard labor and half ration. So they took me about 200 yards away from the barracks where the rest of the guys were, and they put me in a hole in the ground about 10 feet under. And I had rice straw to lay on, and that was better than some of the places I had spent many a night. But they took me and one other guy in another hole whom I didn't know. They took us out to saw wood all day with a crosscut saw for the Chinese use. And then they bring us back to the hole at night. And this went on for several days, but we learned from civilians going along the road out there that the war was over. Began to see trucks go by with some GIs on it, POWs, and they were going in the direction of the main road which led down to the neutral zone. So we had hopes that, that was what was happening, but we didn't really know. And the Chinese wouldn't tell us anything. And after a few days, I come out of the hole to go to work, and the guards motioned for us to go toward 2 trucks that were sitting over there. And as I got closer, I could see that some of the guys that was on the truck were also troublemakers. And the trucks were headed in the opposite direction. And when I got, the guards motioned me to get on the truck. When I got on the truck, there was not much talking going on. I guess they were all thinking the same thing that I was, that we were headed for China, not the neutral zone. And they took us way back up in the mountain, put double guard on us, and we kept asking questions, and the Chinese wouldn't tell us anything. So finally, after about 2 weeks, here come 2 more trucks, and they loaded us up on the trucks, and then those trucks started going south on the main road. This never our hopes increased, and we felt like that this may be a chance to go to the neutral zone to be turned over. When we went down to the neutral zone, got there across the river, there were big tents set up and a big sign saying "Welcome Home." And the trucks pulled up there pretty close, turned around and backed up to the tents, and there was American high-ranking officers standing there welcoming us home. And we got off the trucks, and of course it was hugs and tears, but the 2-star general asked me what I would like, and I said, "Sir, I'd like to go home, but I would sure like to have a good meal, and I'd like to sleep in a bed." He said, "Son, you're home now." So after I think it was the next day, they put us on helicopters and flew us down to the ship. We got on the ship, and then they began to interrogate us, debrief us on the ship home. And when we came under the Golden Gate Bridge, and Then they put us on a plane, and we came home. I got off the plane in Tallahassee, and they had some friends there to pick us up, and they brought us down to Perry, and I met my family at the bus station. I had forgot what my family looked like. But then we had a big celebration, and I met my lovely wife, and we've been married for 59 years. The Lord has blessed me.